Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Goosebumps Crew Podcast. I'm your host, Isaiah Vargas, also known as the Goosebumps Channel, and I'm joined once again by my Goosebumps cohorts, Goosebumps Aussie fan Bjorn Panlick, Minnesota Goosebumps fan, the Ultimate Goosebumps Man, and Nick Shaw, also known as Shawin on Instagram. We are very excited to be here tonight because we have a guest joining us, a very special guest, in fact. He is the incredible illustrator behind the original Goosebumps books, including many of the spin-offs, and we have him here tonight to talk a little bit about his work. Tim Jacobus, great to have you here tonight.
What's up? How is everybody tonight?
Doing good.
Doing good. Really good.
Thanks for having me. Much appreciated.
So tonight's episode is going to be pretty casual. It's going to be a nice little interview talking with Tim about his work and going from there, just having a little fun tonight. So how this is going to work is each of the guys has two of their own questions they're going to ask Tim, and we're going to go down the line and have ourselves a grand old time. So I suppose we might as well start with Bjorn over here.
Hey Tim, how you going?
Good. How about yourself? Long time no see.
Yeah, it's so great to finally just to do this. Like, we've been talking on and off now for years, pretty much since I would say maybe the first Goosebumps movie came out. We've been sort of like chatting and been more social.
Yeah.
Basically, my first question is, if Scholastic was to approach you to come back to take over and continue your work with the Goosebumps book covers, would you jump at the opportunity?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. When my term at doing the Goosebumps covers came to an end, there was no animosity. There was no bad feelings. It was just, there was a point where the series kind of stopped for a little while. And then when they started it back up, I had been doing those covers for well over 10 years. And the way the book business always runs is, after a while, they just change up illustrators, they change up packaging. It's good marketing to make something look different after X number of years. So it wasn't that there was something that went wrong between us. So yeah, if it ever came up, and even if it was a special edition or anything, as you guys probably know, I talk with RL on a regular basis. And as recent as last October, we worked together while he's doing that graphic novel, The Stuff of Nightmares. I got an opportunity to do a cover with him again. And, it's funny. We're not similar people, we're kind of an odd couple, and we were kind of thrust together all those years ago, but there's something about what he does and what I do that just works together. And I don't need a lot of input from him to get good things to come out. And it's not that I have any special ability. It happens with him. I have other people that I work with where, it doesn't click as well. So I don't know what it is. I love him to death. He's a fun guy. He's a great guy to sit down and have a meal with. He makes me laugh all the time. And so I can't tell you what the secret sauce is, but there is a secret sauce.
Yeah, definitely. It's just crazy to me because, that's what got me into Goosebumps in the first place, was seeing those covers. And I was only 4 when I first saw those covers, like a little kid, I remember hanging out with my cousin. We were having this great day. But then he just wanted to go and play his video games. He's like, I don't want to hang out with you anymore. Go read a book. And I went over to his desk and he had a bunch of these books, just a stack of them. And right on top was Night of the Living Dummy. And I remember just staring at it for like an hour, 2 hours while he's there playing a game. And he's just looking over thinking he's not even reading the book. He's just staring at it. Like, what's going on here? And it's crazy what your covers have done, because like, even when I go to book festivals now, like, you see so many of like the new covers, like the reissues, but it's funny. I see little kids and they have a stack of like the original 62 books as opposed to like the new covers. Like, there's heaps of them on the tables that they could be grabbing, but they're like, I don't want that. they're trying to find like in between all the cracks, like all the original art that you did. So it's just crazy how after all these years, like the impact that your illustrations have had, and even with the new kids today, it's insane.
And I think part of that is the new kids today are being, so you guys were exposed to it because there was just this sweeping wave of books that came flowing into your schools through the Scholastic Book Fair or however it went on in where you live. But the kids now are mostly being exposed to it through their parents. And their parents are big fans of the original cover. So they're being schooled on, these are the cool ones. Now, I hope they think they're the cool ones, but they may be being a little bit coerced into what they think are the cool ones.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
No, my little sister recently, and it might be because of me, recently got into the books also. And when I went to go get her, because she wanted to get her own books, I made sure to get the originals and not the reissues. Not because they're any different, but it's like I want to make sure it's known that these were the OGs. These were the ones that started it all, and it's just incredible. It's just absolutely incredible.
And that's, just broaden it out from the Goosebumps stuff. You always want to have whatever was the original setup. If that's, we all, if you're a sports fan, you have a specific year that you love that team, and that's, the original lineup from that team is who you like. It happens in bands with music. You remember, whoever the original guitarist was, and that was the lineup that really killed, and those are the ones you like the best. So there's something to it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I'd also like to just say that, kind of like what Bjorn said, I go to bookstores all the time looking for the OG covers, even if like most of them I already have. I don't buy like duplicates besides some here and there, but I always see all of the reprints just stacked, and then you might get one book of yours, and it's just like, wow. It really shows that your covers have done just so much for people. And like you said, with parents kind of coercing their kids to like them. I also think that with the internet everywhere these days, that people will find these covers and they'll be like, whoa, these look awesome. And especially compared to these new ones, which still look good in my opinion, but it's kind of hard to compare.
The guy who does the covers now is a solid artist. And I have mass respect for the guy. I know some people, like you say, they, everybody liked, when it comes to the Goosebumps stuff, they like the original stuff, and that, he's not getting the traction that I got. But if you go search him out and go look at the stuff he does for any other thing that he's done, and he's done hundreds and hundreds of covers, and you can separate yourself from the Goosebumps stuff, you can see how incredible this guy is. So there's absolutely no lack of talent. Pick somebody, who has all the chops to be doing the job.
There's been 4 or 5 artists now. I think 5.
Yeah. There's been a number of them, but they've never brought in anybody who shouldn't be playing. There was never. They're bringing in top drawer people every time.
Well, and Brandon Dorman, who is the one that was doing it since Horrorland. So when the first Horrorland book, the series that is, not the original One Day at Horrorland, that came out in 2008, and that was Brandon Dorman who did the cover for those. Now he has a distinct style of his own too, and that lasted until I think very recently. Now they have a new guy once again doing the brand new series that came out, House of Shivers. But it's like you said, it's like some people find that.
If you look at Brandon's time frame, it's he may have gone a little longer, or he may have, I'm not sure, or number of books or whatever. Like, again, they switch it up. You get to a point where, again, you don't get to, it's not a numbers, it's not a, no artist chooses to bow out and go on to do something. Maybe there are, but I don't know anybody who ever has. So it's interesting. I always think it keeps things fresh. that you change it up, whether you think the new guy is good or you have a favorite guy, change is always good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
Bjorn, what is your second question?
So my second question is, so you've done so many covers for the original Goosebumps books, of course, but also you did so many different artworks for other Goosebumps media, like the Goosebumps Live on Stage. You did the Goosebumps Disney World attraction. There was also like a cover up with all the different monsters coming out of a book. And you also did like the Goosebumps movie soundtrack vinyl, and you did like the piece of Jack Black in the movie. What was your favorite piece of art that you did that wasn't from the original books, that was from the other different Goosebumps media that you did the art for?
I think the one you touched on, I think I like the doing the vinyl soundtrack album for the first Goosebumps movie, only because it's the 12 by 12 format, and it had the double page spread on the inside. So that's 12 inches by 24 inches I get to use as my palette, and it gives you guys as the viewer greater opportunity to look at the details and stuff. So as you guys may know, or just for anybody else who's listening who may not know, the original paintings were 20 inches by 20 inches that went on the Goosebumps cover. So my recollection of the Goosebumps covers are big, and I had my nose this far away from putting all that cool detail in it. Then they reduce it down and put it on the book cover. So your guys' experience was only in that 4x7 format. So a different experience. So the fact that they let me do the 12 by 24, now we're both kind of having the same experience when we look at the art. So, and plus you got a chance to go revisit some old characters and, put them in a scenario in the movie theater that, something different that we hadn't done before.
Well, and that's why it's so great that you've been giving out the Goosebumps prints on your website, because now people get to see these cover arts not only by themselves, but they can get them much larger in a way that they can display on their wall, and it's just
I sell them at 18 by 18 only because it's a break off in the way printers work. I wanted to do 20/20, do a 1-to-1, but the difference in cost for an 18 to 18 to a 20 by 20 is almost double the cost, believe it or not. Makes no sense. But
those extra 2 inches.
Those extra 2 inches, take it off of that machine and put it on this crazy ass machine over here that costs a lot more to run. So yeah, 18's fine. But yeah, so to your point, that I like that opportunity for everybody to see it. The art pulled out, like you say, no other graphics going on, no logos, no anything, just the paintings as you saw as they were created, and almost to the exact size. So yeah, you guys are now seeing what I had in mind the whole time.
Absolutely. All right.
Well, it's also one of those things we're glad we don't have any females on here right now, because those 2 inches, I'm sure they'd have comments about.
Absolutely.
I knew someone was going to make a joke.
I couldn't resist. Sorry.
Thanks, Bjorn, for your questions. And now I know that Soda definitely was probably the most excited to get to talk to you tonight, Tim. So we'll go with him next. Soda, what is your first question for Tim?
All right, so one that I've always wondered is because whenever I see the covers, I go, I wonder which one had to be like the hardest to make. Which, in your opinion, just was like, did you ever make a mistake on something, or was it just the overall hardest to make?
Well, I'm going to answer the second part first. All of them have mistakes in them. Like, you start out with you're just trying to make stuff happen, and you keep fooling with an area because it's wrong, and then, okay, that's right. Then you can move on to another section. So you're doing nothing but correcting mistakes the whole time. Years and years ago, so yeah, I did my first book cover in, I think, 1981, 82. So I've been at this a long time. And back then, everything was driven by fear because I didn't, my whole thing was, I don't know if I can do this. I got a new assignment. I never painted this thing before. I never painted a knight on a horse coming down the road. It's freaking me out a little bit. And, I didn't go in, nothing was, I didn't go into it confidently. Now I've done it for so long that every idea that comes up, I'm going, I can do this. I know I can do this. And even if it's something I've never created exactly, I'm like, yeah, I got it. I'll figure it out. I got a tool in the toolbox. We'll make it go. Now, as far as the Goosebumps stuff, that the ones that were the hardest, I'm going to tell you two different things. The ones that were the most challenging to me and the most fun were RL was writing the book at the same time I'm doing the cover. So he would just give me the title, couple of sentences about what the book, what was going on in the book, and I would create the cover. Now, you come up with something like The Werewolf of Fever Swamp. That almost right there in the title, I know what I'm doing. It's a werewolf. It's in a swamp. I'm 80% down the road on this thing. Then it was when he started twisting the whole thing up and coming up with ones like, it came from beneath the sink. Okay, what is that? Oh, I read it, two more sentences and it's like, it's a killer sponge. And then I got to go, oh, come on. What am I going to do with this? I don't know what's scary. I don't know what to do with this. This is really messing with me. So there were a few like that one where the hard part was right at the beginning, trying to concoct a way to make something that seems either ridiculous or super funny, but turn it into something that we can make it work in the Goosebumps cover.
A really quick question, and I'm only bringing this up because we made a running joke out of this in the few episodes we've done so far. What did you think when you got the concept for chicken?
Again, same thing. You're just going, okay, I'll come up with something. Yeah, remind me to go back to that one, but I'm going to finish answering the question. But the one painting that was the hardest, technically, was in the series 2000 Invasion of the Body Squeezers. So that was the idea to it. It was two covers, and the idea was you bought them and you could put them together and you could have one image. But we did it. I produced it as one giant piece of artwork. So it was tough to make it all work so that it didn't look like a painting that was cut in half. I wanted to make it all look like it would go together, and it had to work with all the text and where the logo goes and that kind of stuff. Then the final part of it that made it even harder was now I have this giant thing. So usually I'm shipping 20-inch by 20-inch stuff through Federal Express. I package them up in cardboard and I send them in. Well, now I'm sending something that's 20 inches by 40 inches, which is way too big to be trying to send it in any sort of delivery service. I should have just put it in the car and driven it there, but I didn't. Gave it to the service, and when they got it at Scholastic, someone called me and said, oh, something happened. And I was like, what? And they said the painting got folded in half. And I was like, oh, shit. I was like, all right. And they're like, yeah, but we're not shit. I'm just going, oh, man, like, what a disaster. And I forget if they shipped it back. No, I think I might have went and got it. Anyway, I'm not sure. I don't remember the logistics of it. Mm-hmm. But what ended up happening, and it was, usually you get a painting and it gets a fold in it, you're kind of screwed. You got to redo it. But in this particular case, because we had such a large piece, it was two separate covers. If I can't tell you that thing creased right in the middle, right where we were going to cut it anyway. And it literally folded right in half, right down the line. I never had to touch it again. And everybody just stood there and shook their head and went, oh, that was really lucky. So the painting did get messed up, but no one ever knew. And so that one was hard. And there was a little scary moment in there where I thought I might have had to redo it.
Oh no! Oh, especially for the size of it, having to redo that one in particular.
It would have been redoing 2 covers, and then on top of it, there's we're always, as you finish one, it's time to start the next one. And if I had to try to then squeeze in a double painting before it would have just been a logistical big pain in the butt, but didn't happen.
Yeah, well, thank goodness for that. Well, Soda, what's your second question there?
My second one, I kind of doubt, but I really have to know. Do you or did you ever own any Goosebumps books or any of the merchandise or anything of that matter?
So at the beginning of the series, there was somebody at Scholastic who used to make sure that I would get a few books, and they'd ship them to me. I got a lot of at first I was getting a lot of what are called galley proofs. So what they are is that's the cover before it gets wrapped around the book and it's flat. And they would give me a stack of those so I could see what the cover was going to look like a couple of months beforehand. Then I started to get some books for a while. And then when it really started rocking and rolling, everything became very sporadic. Sometimes you would get them. Sometimes somebody would go, oh, here's the last 8 books, and they would shoot them over. And then a long period of time would go by. I tried to stay on top of it because I maintained a collection for my mom. So I would make sure that I got them there. And then once we got the collection going, even she got into it and, made sure that she had all of her books all lined up. The one thing that I did get that was, ridiculous, and I'm glad they sent it to me because it was so stupid. We did those glow-in-the-dark boxer shorts that they sold through the stores, and they had me paint a 48-inch tall curly that they actually pinned the boxer shorts to, and he was there tipping his hat, and they had a whole cutout of it. And so for a while I had Curly standing up in my studio with the boxer shorts. I took the boxer shorts off him, not that anything was going on under there. Going back to your 2 inches.
Whoa.
But that was a fun piece of merchandise, but most of the merchandise was done by a whole separate group of people because there was so much stuff coming out. They offered it to me, but there was no way I could, there wasn't enough hours in the day to crank out that stuff. So that's why you can see on a lot of the merchandise, it's a lot more line art. It's a different style, which is cool. And the covers are, in a different setup.
And now that I asked this, I kind of have to ask this as well. Did you ever read them?
No, that's a great question. So I used to, early in the Goosebumps series, I started to get requests from like the local library, and then the elementary schools reached out and said, can you come and talk to the kids and talk about the books? And always got asked, for the longest time, what's your favorite cover? What's R.L. Stine like, and all that stuff. And I remember early on, some kid going, no, not the favorite cover, the favorite book. And when he asked me at that time, I had never read a single one because I was just painting one book to the next, to the next, to the next. I went, oh, I better go back and read a couple of these. So I have a solid answer. Next time somebody asks, I have one at least in my back pocket to go, I read this one all the way through. This one's good. So I've read a few of them over the years. You guys have all read all. I'm all way more than I have ever read. So it was because it was something I had to go back and do, and it was so anti-productive when we were doing the covers. It's fun to go back now. I went back and read one recently. I've been doing, so in publishing now, almost all the people who are that I'm meeting now that are putting out books are all self-publishing, because self-publishing is super easy. You don't need the big, you don't need a Scholastic to put out a book if you want to put out a book. But when you're working with a big publisher and you get an author's work, they've been through so many rounds of vetting, and nobody who's not great doesn't get through there. Well, that barrier has kind of come down, and I have people coming straight to me, which may or may not, could use a little more practice. So I got a couple of books in a row, and I'm going, boy, these are a little bit rough. And then I'm going, it may not be the books, it might be you. You're getting to be a crabby old man, and maybe you're just copping an attitude. And I went, all right, let me go back and grab a Goosebumps book and go through it again. And started to read it, and then started laughing and went, no. These are good. What I've been reading is not good. And there's a, the Goosebumps stuff. It's even kind of more interesting, a lot like the TV show. It's more interesting to go back and look at them now, because you look at it with a different frame. The TV series is more fun to watch because you forget how dated it was, and you forget how low the budget was for the TV show, and you go, oh, this is classic. This is just classic 90s TV. And the Goosebumps books, you go, oh yeah, the structure, the pacing, the length of the chapters, the hook at the end of every chapter that gets you excited to go, all right, I'll read one more chapter. And the way he drove you through those books as a kid to get you to, and then he would have the big surprise ending at the end. I mean, call it a formula, call it whatever you want. It's still, a great, it has a rhythm to it that a lot of books never could figure out how to do.
Well, and it's always, I remember we talked about this a while back, but I mean, in the 90s, Goosebumps was such, you didn't really see anything like that. It was kind of I wouldn't say it was maybe like the first of its kind, but it was like a real groundbreaker. And after that, you started seeing all these imitators coming out trying to do what Goosebumps did, not really succeeding, but no. It just shows like how much of an impact it had in that style of writing. And it's just great to go back to it.
Yeah, and what was cool about it is RL had that thing down, and so again, opportunity, meets skill and all that stuff, and so he was doing his thing exactly the way he wanted to do it, and it was at the right time, and like you say, there was nothing like it anywhere else, and it just took off. Now everybody else is coming behind him, and they're trying to imitate him, and it's his thing. You can never, you can't imitate somebody. You have to come up with your own thing if you wanted to put that, get that magic out of it. So yeah, whenever you're chasing someone and you're trying to imitate them, it never works. You may get close, but there was nothing. There was no series. Well, I guess there was a couple that were pretty good, but the ones that were the direct knockoffs of the Goosebumps series never had that click to it.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on over to Nick over here. What is your first question?
So what I have kind of pertains to Goosebumps, because back when the Goosebumps success really blew up because of your art. I think a lot of us can sit there and say that, mostly due to the fact that, like, for instance, the very first book I ever saw was The Haunted Mask. I judged the book by the cover, and I'm glad I did. Because then it got me to read the book, and then it got me to the other books, got me into art, got me into horror, got me into a lot of things. So, it was really a path that it set me on. But now that you see how art today is being done, and with AI being out there, like, what are your thoughts on where art is going from here? because to me, AI art is going to be the death of actual real artists. I have a lot of artist friends who do conventions and things like that, and it's really sad to see that this AI stuff is becoming so popular, because the imagination is not there, the process is really not there that you can see people put into their work, like we saw in your work and what inspired so many generations. So I was just kind of curious what your thought on that was going forward with AI art.
I've been around long enough to where I've heard this story before. This first wave happened in the late 90s, early 2000s, when digital art became something that everybody could do at home. And the book companies even said, listen, you all have to start doing digital art if you want to continue to do book covers. We're not going to be taking any traditional art in after, this particular date. And you just need to learn how to do it, because from a business standpoint, it's way easier to get the digital art to work. There was a boatload of guys who just went, I'm out. I didn't spend my whole life learning how to become this great oil painter, to put down all my brushes and pick up this rock and learn how to go do digital art. And you heard the same things. There's no soul in it. There's no real skill to it. And that there's people who don't know how to draw who can now do cover art. And yes, there were people who dropped out who were very talented because they just didn't want to deal with it. But still, the better artists all hung out and learned how to do this new tool and continued on. AI is another animal altogether. I have, it's the more you are exposed to it or play with it. I haven't used the graphics tools as much, but I have used ChatGPT, and the things that happen in there are very incredible. So I'm still of the same mindset that yes, there will be people who get blown out of the water by this thing, but it's yet to do anything where it's not stealing. It's only conglomerating ideas that it grabs on its own. And granted, it's got a really big brain and it's got a really big source, but it's still just putting stuff together. And at this point, we can all kind of still look at it and you go, that's AI. It's good. I can see a one-to-one thing where they're, you've seen the AI Goosebumps books or the AI Jacobus stuff. I'm just going, and every once in a while I go, nah, and then every once in a while I go, that one's pretty good. So, but I have no idea how far it's going to go. I don't care. Like, to me, it's just like, this isn't a thing that I do like it's a competition with, like, I don't compete with other illustrators. The competition that goes on is inside me. It's how, I need to get better to do what I do better. I'm not trying to do better to be better than, Roger Dean or Frank Frazetta or any of the other, great illustrators who are out there. So now that there's this thing called AI, I don't care what it does because it's going to do its own thing, but I'm going to still do my stuff, and it can't do what I do. It simply can't. And you can't do what I do, and I can't do what you do either. So I'm less freaked out by it. I think there's going to be bigger AI problems than whether they can paint a nice picture. I think there's going to be way bigger problems with it. There may be way cooler things, but no, it doesn't bother me as much. And I think everybody, especially if you said you have friends at shows, the people who are going to shows are interested in the person who's creating the art. There's never going to be a time where you're going to walk up to a table at a Comic-Con and, look at a screen and interact with the screen for the AI that created the art that you saw. Nobody's going to give a shit about that, you know. So they're still interested in the person who creates it and talking to them and how they came up with their style. So the personal part of it, I don't think is ever going away. We could do 5 hours on this alone. So,
I'm
Well,
sure.
and there's
I've
never
done a lot of reading on that just to find out where that's going. Because like, I don't sell art myself, but like I said, I have friends that do conventions and they do art and they're fantastic. He's done, you know, actually a lot of licensed stuff even. And I think at the time where his concern came from, where, you know, maybe AI might take his work from him later or something because maybe it's cheaper.
and it's a legitimate concern. Having said that, I think I can honestly say if I'm not one of the top 10 guys who's had his art stolen and reused and redone without his consent, I've seen my stuff everywhere. There's nothing you can do about it. And at some point you get mad at first because you're going, yeah, somebody else is making money and I'm not making money. But then you got to go at some other point, you got to go, oh, they thought my stuff was good enough to hack. And all right, that's kind of a compliment. And you get past it because it's fighting windmills. You lose sleep over it. There's nothing you can do about it. All you can do is sit down and make something new that they don't already have. And then I can show everybody, okay, here's the new shit. Who cares about that stuff? You know, look at what's new. And get people excited about new things. And again, I don't do this. I'm so blessed and pleased that everybody likes what I do. That's so cool. But I didn't start doing it for everybody's approval. I do it for me because it's fun. And I'm the one who's getting the excitement about it. And if everybody went away yesterday and all you guys all of a sudden thought I was an asshole and you didn't want to talk to me anymore, and I still got the opportunity to make my art and still go through the process, I would still like the whole thing, not just as much, but I would still, there would be still tons of enjoyment there because it's still starting with nothing or starting with a fleeting thought and coming up with something that didn't exist before. And that simple transition has never gotten old after hundreds and hundreds of paintings.
And there's never going to be a shortage of really smart, creative people, no matter what comes along.
Exactly.
Like AI, look, I mean, there is genuine concern about AI art, but that's never going to take away from the fact that there are millions upon millions upon millions of new, talented, not just artists, but like anything, filmmakers, writers, like anything that are coming out of the woodwork every day. And no matter how big this AI thing gets, I think public conception is that it's going to be either a novelty or just something to brush off. And that's the thing. It's never going to replace good creative people who have something to say.
Right. And again, it's still in its infancy. We don't know where it's going, but I see it more that it may be just like I do way more digital art now than I do traditional art because this new tool gave me an opportunity to do different things. We're looking right now, everybody's looking at it as I'm me and the AI is over here and it's doing its own thing. Eventually that AI is going to be at my access the same way all my digital tools are, and I'm going to be teaming up with this AI thing. I don't know how, I don't know why, but now I'm going to have a new set of opportunities because I'm going to have this thing that's smarter than I am, which isn't hard to do. I have a pencil sharpener that's smarter than I am. But again, you'll have the access of this other entity that may work as just a new tool, and I will be teaming up with it, and together we'll be creating something even at another level. So yeah, I don't think you can make any real judgment on it. Listen, everybody may be right, and it might be the death of art. But I kind of doubt it.
Yeah, I feel like
agree. And
like
Yeah.
no matter no matter what in this world, like, even if AIR is cheaper, there's always going to be people out there who still would be willing to pay the money to get an additional piece of artwork just because it has that personal touch.
Yeah,
like,
it's the reason why you can buy a Kia or you can buy a Porsche. The Kia is a good car. It'll get you where you need to be. But there's still plenty of people who want that Porsche because it does something else, and it's got something special about it. So absolutely. No, I see it more as, again, it's that unknown thing that everybody's going, holy shit, what is this? I don't know what it is. And the unknown scares everybody until all of a sudden it becomes a known. And more than likely, we're all going to look back on it and go, hey, remember when we were scared of that? We should have been looking over here because there's the problem over there, whatever there is. So,
Yeah.
Skynet. But,
Yeah.
Movies try to warn us, but we don't listen.
Seen Terminator? I have.
Just think of Terminator, but with art. Nick, what's your second question?
So for your Night of the Living Dummy cover, and you explained a little bit earlier that you get some details, maybe a sentence or two, or what the book title is as well. So in the first Night of the Living Dummy, the main ventriloquist dummy is actually Mr. Wood. So were you given a description to put Slappy on the cover, or was it more they kind of gave you the wrong?
I didn't even know Mr. Wood existed.
Okay.
So Slappy was all we talked about.
Just like the rest of the series.
I only had two sentences. If I got a third sentence, maybe Mr. Wood would have been brought up, but I didn't get the third sentence. I didn't know. We didn't get into it that much. It was more, let's concentrate on the single character and don't branch out into that there's multiples. So the other thing that I did, so this is 91, 92, and we're doing that cover, maybe 93, doesn't matter. I don't have access to I don't own a computer at that point. Google, it's there, but not for me. So the way I got all my information was when I would get a job and I just figure out what I'm going to do, I would go to the county library and I would get books on the subject matter that I'm going to paint. So I went to the library and got this incredible books on ventriloquist dummies, the history of ventriloquist dummies, and tons of picture books. I would get picture books on anything just to get a sense of, what they were, how they worked, what was, and the part that made it the easiest is the minute you start looking at those things, they're freaking you out. Like, they tried to make them look normal, and by them trying to make them look normal, they made them look freaky and creepy right out of the box. So I knew I didn't have to, what I tried not to do is overdo it, because it's already there. This creepy element is already there. So there was no need to have any, ooze dripping out of his mouth or, anything too crazy. So yeah, all I did was mess with his eyes and his eyebrows, dropped his jawline a little bit farther and make the shadows intense. And it just worked. So no, that one was kind of served up to me pretty easily, because ventriloquist dummies are just they're freaky to start with.
One thing that I loved about the way that you drew Slappy was that you're right, that he always had his jaw open, and I don't really think a lot of other artist versions of Slappy really had that. There was just something about him just constantly having this elongated jaw that made him that much scarier, and that was always something I really liked about the way you drew him specifically.
And that's it. And then if you look at other characters in the Goosebumps series, because that's a freaky thing, I'm doing it all the time. The hamster on Monster Blood 2. Same shit's happening. I realized that disjointed jaw just looked, because it would still maintain a partial smile, but something was way wrong. So once I hooked into that, I just went, all right, well, there's put that in the recipe book. We're gonna use that going forward.
Bjorn, I cut you off. I'm sorry. What were you saying before?
Oh, no, like, it's funny because, like, even in the original Night of the Living Dummy, though, Mr. Wood doesn't come until much later. Slappy is, like, introduced first. They really, sort of, they make it seem like he is going to be the main villain for majority of the book until Mr. Wood comes in. Like, I think it's like halfway through the book. It's like pretty far in. So I always had in my head that they just sent you the description, like, from, like, the first description of the ventriloquist dummy, and I always thought, well, because Slappy's the first one to be introduced, maybe that's why. But you know what? It's at a point now where you wouldn't change it for the world. Like, that is, like, the most iconic, one of the top 3 most iconic Goosebumps books of all time. Like, never change.
And I mean, to go back from, again, I don't know. These are all questions that we need Bob here to really sort it out. He comes up with the title. He gives me a couple sentences. Maybe he doesn't know Mr. Woods in the story when he tells me, when they give me the green light to go. He may, he knows he's got a ventriloquist story, but he may not realize until he's in the book where he goes, oh yeah, this is the twist I want. And so I'm guessing there is a real strong possibility that there was no way to tell me that Mr. Wood was going to be there because he didn't know he was going to be there yet.
Yeah, definitely.
Alrighty. And now we got Ultimate Goosebumps Man. We got your 2 questions. What's your first one?
So I was always wondering, because I am an art major at my school, mainly in graphic design, really not traditional art, but I'm always curious because, like, staring at these covers, of all of the covers, specifically the original 62, since those are, like, the most iconic, what was your favorite cover to design, like, from, like, the beginning concept sketch phase to the final painting?
Let me think about that.
We're all just waiting in anticipation.
Yeah, I know. Again, I'm trying to. If I had them all laid out in front of me, I'd go, "Oh yeah, that's right. That would have been cool." Like to draw. It's a really good question. I think maybe Horrorland, just because of the the overall idea that there was a lot happening in that story. Again, I didn't get a lot of details of it, but trying to create the idea that I didn't get a lot of information at that point, and I'm trying to present the cover the same way to you guys, the viewer. Like, something bad's going to be happening back there. Even I don't know what's going to be happening in the actual Horrorland, but let me get you the entrance to the place and make it as creepy as I can, and just create as much as much intrigue as I can, and make you want to look behind and underneath the sign and see what's going on in the amusement park that's off in the distance. And then the other thing, and someone just asked me recently about it, and I remember when I created the original Horrorland sign, the question was, is the monster part of the sign, or is the monster coming over the sign? And when I did it, the idea was it was kind of both. He was supposed to be part of the sign, made into a physical part of the sign, but his hands were coming to life and starting to set himself apart, and that's why you see him scratching his fingers across the lettering. So
I never thought about that. That's actually really nice, actually.
Yeah.
Well, and it came from a real life experience. So I did some art before Goosebumps. I think it was before Goosebumps, for an amusement park in Pennsylvania, and they had a roller coaster called the Hercules, and I did some art for it. And it was fun. We got to ride the roller coaster, all that stuff that you would hope would happen if you did artwork for a roller coaster. Got to go when the park was closed and get on the roller coaster as many times as you wanted, all that stuff. But they turned my art, and it was a illustration logo thing put together, and they put it on a giant billboard on one of the main highways. But what they also did was extend the art past the border lines of the billboard, so that the arc of the roller coaster and the Hercules character and everything was all cut out and away from it, just like the Horrorland sign is there, except so I saw my art like that and went, oh, that's really cool when the stuff leaves the border of what you're expecting to see. And so there's some real life aspect to what went on the Horrorland sign, and something I saw with my own artwork on it.
Would have been so funny if when you said it was based off real experiences, I was going to be like, you saw a sign come to life?
And it wasn't even, and the Hercules roller coaster wasn't, the art wasn't scary. It was, a muscle-bound guy, on a horse with a sword, all that real classic. It looked like the side of a 1990s conversion van, that Rosetta type stuff.
Yeah, like the graffiti, all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the airbrush style. Yeah.
That's just before you ask your second question, Micah, I actually wanted to bring that up because the great thing about the original Goosebumps covers is that some of them are bombastic. Like you have like the big monster, he's like right up front and center. Like looks terrifying, but then you also have a lot of ones like Welcome to Dead House is probably the prime example of there's really no monsters at all, but it's just a creepy people always talk about liminal spaces. Like that one is like almost like textbook definition of that. And even something like Monster Blood, where it's just coming down the stairs.
Really, I thought, worked great on that, because you're like, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what this green stuff is. Somebody's glasses are in there. That can't be good. And so there was, most times we're going right in your face. But other times the idea warranted doing something a little bit more subtle, and you had to kind of just wonder what was happening.
It was Stein's glasses.
Yeah.
That's right. That's something terrible.
Never thought of that. You're right, though.
Well, my uncle always said that he loved, and I know that the original one was a different illustrator, but for Stay Out of the Basement, he said that was one of his favorites. Just the idea of like the basement door with this hand just coming out of it. It's like, what is this thing? Like it builds an image in your head. So it's nice to have a cover where you have like the big scary monster on it, but sometimes leaving it to your imagination not only hooks you into the story more, because you want to see like, what is this thing? It's almost a little creepier because you build a picture in your head.
Or even like the Horror Camp Jelly Jam is a big one, because it doesn't show the monster. It just says Buddy on the front smiling. And like, that was one of the ones that always creeped me out so much as a kid. Like, I remember going to like I was like in first grade. We went to like the our public library as a field trip all the time, and they had like all the Goosebumps books on this like rotating shelf, and I would just pull out the covers and look at them. I never actually checked out the books because the covers scared me too much to actually read them. But like, I just remember like the Night of the Living Dummy cover. I remember like pulling this one out of the shelf, taking 1 second of a glance at this, and then pushing it back onto the shelf immediately because it scared me so bad.
I've got a story about that. I've got a very quick story about the original Night of the Living Dummy cover. So my partner, who I've now just got engaged to,
Congrats.
Thank you so much.
Congrats.
Thank you. So basically, one of her best friends, Iano, has started dating this guy, Ben, and I started talking to him recently, and he grew up in the 90s, like primetime Goosebumps. I think he's about 35 now, and he basically told me his younger brother had to go to therapy because of the original Living Dummy cover. He used to actually, and believe it or not, it was actually, it was the Monster Edition one that has Slappy holding the book that says book report by Slappy.
Oh yeah.
He used to chase him around the house with the book cover, and he used to hide in cupboards. He used to literally run out the front door, down the street, even if he wasn't wearing clothes on, didn't care, and he'd be running down the street. And apparently, he had to see somebody. Like, he had to go to therapy because of that book. So something about Slappy just really terrified kids. And but hey, that's why it's so special. That's why we love it.
That he was talking about.
Or like, I remember, like, when I was a kid, we went to, like, we had like a local secondhand store that's closed now, sadly, but like we went and I found like this, there was like 2 big bags just full of Goosebumps books, and I got one of them. It was mostly some of the Give Yourself Goosebumps books, but there was a few classic series ones, and it had You Can't Scare Me in it, and that was honestly one of the scariest covers I'd ever seen. And like, I got the book, brought it home, and literally, even though it was full, the lights were all on upstairs, I was too afraid to go upstairs by myself because I was afraid I was going to see, like, the mud monsters, like, in my room or something. Even in, like, the bright light. Like,
yeah, I know that a lot of people, I think, you know, the Goosebumps books were ones that were put on shelves, covered facing the wall so that they couldn't see it at night more than any other book series out there. So yeah, that's great. I like that.
I remember well, when I first discovered Goosebumps, and it was a nice 1-2 punch of I don't ever want to see this series again, because the first thing I saw was the Cartoon Network promos from like the late 2000s when they were re-airing the TV series. And Cartoon Network did these like it was very reminiscent of Grindhouse 80s horror movies with the TV series. And those promos terrified me. And then I went and actually saw what the books looked like. And that, like, I was just like, nope, I don't ever want to see these books again. I think I actually, one of the ones that scared me, and this was one of Mark Nagata's. Mark Nagata, for those who are unfamiliar, he was the first artist. Well, Tim, you did Escape from the Carnival of Horrors, right?
Correct, the one with the alligator on it.
Yep. And
right.
then
at that point they said, you know, if Tim ever, you know, gets sick, or if he, you know, gets too big for his britches and, you know, all of a sudden isn't doing what we need him to do, now we have 2 series in jeopardy. So yeah, that's when Mark came on board. Yeah,
Mark Nagata, and he did a lot of really good pieces. And I remember as a kid, and it's a really goofy one in like retrospect, but Beware the Purple Peanut Butter with the kid and the big sandwich. Like, that one, like, for some reason was like haunting to me. But now I look at it, it's like, it's underneath the bread, you know, and then there's the big like glass of milk right there. And like, it's just funny how like goofy yet like, when you're a kid, these things are way scarier to you, but at the same time, it's incredibly goofy. It's like, it's silly and fun in a lot of them, and I don't know. It's amazing how you can put so many different tones into one piece of art.
And but again, this was at RL's lead. You know, Welcome to Dead House. There was nothing funny about that one. You know, that was a pretty straightforward, dark horror book. That's, you know, and that's where he went at the beginning. And then as we started to move forward, he went, all right, we got to lighten this up a little. Again, I don't know RL from anybody else. You know, I learned about RL when you guys learned about RL. And, you know, finding out that he had a humor background. And again, it wasn't until I get the cover for Say Cheese and Die where like the light switch goes on and I go, oh, Say Cheese and Die. Oh, we're goofing around here. There's, you know, we're allowed to be funny too. So once I knew that, then it's like, all right, let's lean into that a little bit, and, you know, let's be scary, but let's be as, you know, see if we can get some laughs out of this too.
Well, yeah, and Say Cheese and Die, like, how did it make you feel like when Stein saw your cover and actually added that into the book, since that originally wasn't in it? Like,
what's really funny about that? So yeah, so that book comes out in 94, 95, whenever it comes out. I know nothing about that. I had no idea. I always looked at it as one of my better pieces because I was like, oh yeah, this is when I learned that we're supposed to be funny. And the piece came out good, and it is. It's both scary and silly and funny at the same time. And so I always used it as an example. It wasn't but a couple of years ago, him and I are out at a bookstore doing a talk together, and he tells that story about the family not being. I never heard it before. I had never heard it. So here it is 30 years later before I hear the story that I actually pissed him off, and he had to go back and write something into the book. So, all of a sudden this favorite book of mine now kind of has moved down the list as, well, maybe that isn't one of my favorites anymore because, I made him work a little extra overtime.
I would have found it hilarious.
When he's telling the story, I'm just in my head. I'm just staring at him, going, I can't believe I don't know this story. I can't believe we're this far down the road, and this is the first time I'm hearing it.
Yeah.
No, everybody else, not even in private either.
That's it.
But everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, even when you get into covers like the aforementioned chicken, like that one is goofy, but even like what's another one that was just so funny? I know my best friend is invisible.
Chicken book, if you look at the original and you might, it's hard sometimes because I really kept my name small in there. I don't know if they did it on purpose, and I'm pretty sure it happened by accident. So I would send my artwork in, and it would go to a special photographer who would take pictures of it.
Oh, yeah.
And they would make what were called transparencies. Transparencies are, you remember the little 1-inch by 1-inch slides that used to fit into a slide projector?
Yeah.
So you could look at them, like they're transparent. You could look at them from both sides. Well, they did the same thing, except it was 8 by 10. It was big, and it was a big camera where this thing came out of. So they were taking these super high resolution things, and you would have something that you could look at either way. Either was like if the top and bottom weren't marked, you could make the mistake of printing it backwards. And that's exactly what happened with Chicken.
Yeah, I was about to say.
My name's written backwards. I didn't write my name backwards. They screwed up and somebody flipped it over by mistake. And I'm sure nobody ever copped to it. I'm sure they said, oh, we like the way it looked moving from left to right instead of right to left. But nah, somebody flipped over the transparency by mistake.
Let's just say, gee, he's really talented to write his name backwards like that.
Doing my Michelangelo stuff.
No,
it's like that cover. Another like one of your sillier covers with My Harry's Adventure. I'm like, why does Larry have such big ears on the cover? Like
he does have like really big ears.
Size ears. Like
yeah, they used to. They gave us a budget whenever there was a kid who was prominent in it. That one. Why I'm Afraid of Bees. Trying to think of some other ones where the kids were really prominent. They gave us a budget to get there was a photographer in New York who did nothing but photograph people for artists. So you used to go in, the photographer had the full studio, you used to go there and you could pick out, in my case, kids, models from these books come in, and the kids, you pose them, you get the nice lighting, they would dress up sometimes. I didn't do it a lot for Goosebumps. I tried to use family members when I could, but there were other series where, we would dress, they gave you the budget to dress them up. If they were supposed to be a prince from the Middle Ages, you would dress them up. So that was a whole little side thing that you got to do. That was a ton of fun. All the kids were into it. The woman who was the photographer was this older woman who was a piece of work, but she was a blast to hang out with. And that was just a fun aspect of the job that was kind of like a day off. It's like, oh, I'm going in to do a photo shoot today. I didn't do anything but go, yeah, that looks good. this lady knew what she was doing. All her assistants knew what they were doing. Every once in a while I'd go, I'd put my 2 cents worth in, but I always knew that real professionals were taking care of it. And then I would have great reference for those pieces. So I didn't exaggerate that kid's ears. I'm sorry, he just had those ears, and
He just had really big.
I left them in. I thought they were pretty cool. Once in a while, you would get something and go, "Yeah, I'm gonna fix that nose." Nobody needs to see that.
Yeah. Michael, what's your second question?
So I was also wondering, like, of the original 62 covers, are there any ones that you kind of look back on and kind of wish you could redo?
Yeah.
Air Tower.
No, that one was fine. I just wish I had a little more time to do a little more, and all it would be extra detail in the castle part itself. I knew I only had so much time, so I just made sure that the hunchback was tight, and we could all live. I make sure you're looking at that, and you're not going, well, where's that? Because there's a cool hallway there, and we could have had other avenues off there where you'd wonder where the inside of the castle was going a little bit more. So no, that one didn't bother me as well. The one that bothers me is Go Eat Worms, because there's a better way to do exactly what the image is. Nothing stands out on that piece. There's nothing like you were talking about. Usually there's something dramatic. There's something in the foreground. There's one element that I want you to not be able to miss. So there should be a giant worm that's in the foreground of that one, or a way bigger one that's coming out, or the perspective should be pulled more. It's too flat. It's just too flat.
I'm sorry, I have to say this. That was actually one of my very favorite covers when I was little. And the thing that I always thought was just so scary about it. I mean, it was one of the only ones. I never got too scared by them. I just thought they were super cool. But that one scared me because the worms were ripping out of the papers inside of the book. And that was, like, in my opinion, what made it so, whoa, It still differentiates it from if just a random person drawed worms on a book or something. It makes it more dramatic. So I love that aspect of it.
Well, one thing I always liked about, I think one of the better parts of the TV episode, because me personally, I think the TV episode of Go Eat Worms is the worst episode of the whole show. But there is one
the 90s one or like the current series?
The 90s one. Honestly, the new series, actually Go Eat Worms, is one of the better episodes. We talked about this in our review, but that was surprisingly, Go Eat Worms was one of the better stories. But no, there's one part in the 90s episode where, and it's called Go Eat Worms, where he's lifting up the fork of spaghetti and there's the worms in there. It's like, that would be a pretty good cover. And it's like, right. And it's thematic, but I mean, it's still really good.
Or even like, because Goosebumps had those like second wave of DVDs that used the more like cinematic covers, the more realistic ones. And for Go Eat Worms, it was like a plate of spaghetti with worms crawling in and out of it. And like, I thought that would have been really cool to see in like your art style.
Yep. Yeah, there was a bunch of different ways. I just thought it wasn't dramatic enough, but it still worked for Soda. So I guess I can't say it was wrong.
Yeah.
Sure, there's plenty of stuff that maybe I could go back and do. Luckily, I'm far enough away from it now where I don't do that. So here's the example I'll use. I would finish a painting, and for my former wife, and she would hang it up in the house. Thanks, please paint me one. Yeah, sure, okay, here's your painting. And then I'd walk past it, and then I take it back down, and I have to fix it and work on it some more because it's not quite right, and hang it back up. And that would never end. It would never end. You always wanted to pull it down, always wanted to touch it, always wanted to change it. I finally had to start putting my art under glass so that I couldn't just simply take it down off the wall real quick and mess with it. So I used to have this thing about, it can be better, and they all can. But as I've moved forward, you just go, okay, that's that one. It's done. You don't go back if you really want to revisit it, do a new, better version over here, doing something else, do something original. Don't go back and keep beating on the old pieces. Those are done. Just let it go. Just let it go.
That's actually one thing that we kind of talked about previously, I think, on the last time we all got together last episode. But we thought it would be really cool if like they did a 30th or 35th anniversary editions of original covers, but they had you come back and kind of redo the covers. So not the same exact thing.
Well,
but still keeping it.
Yeah. Are you guys familiar with the Art of Goosebumps book?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I have that.
So I did, there it is. Yeah, I did. There's 2 other sketches for every Goosebumps book. It would be really great to go back and pick one of those alts and do it up and create the full color art for it, and show you what the alternate universe could have been if they picked a different image. So I always wanted to do that, but again, these are side projects that would be fun. I know you guys would be interested, but yeah. I mean, it would be great, and you guys would be supportive. I'm sure I could make prints and sell them, but it's I need more. I need more hours in the day. I need more.
Cool to see like a redo of like the original Night of the Living Dummy, for instance, where you did like the same exact sort of image that you did of Slappy, but using Mr. Wood. That'd just be like a really cool variant, almost if like Scholastic decided, hey,
there's a whole bunch of ideas that would be cool to do, twists on exactly what's there, or just total redos would be fun too. And just to touch on that, the Art of Goosebumps, it's supposed to be, we've been waiting for the second printing for over a year now, and it's supposed to be finally in. So don't go out and do something stupid and spend $200 on a copy that somebody's trying to hawk on the internet. There's going to be more that are coming at the real price, so sit tight. They'll get here eventually.
I see a lot of those going for $200-$300 just because they're so hard to find.
Yeah, the problem just is it's with the company who's running this thing, and the books are there, it's happening, but we can't get a straight answer from them, but it is happening. So my point is, please don't do that. It's not like that's it, and if there was no more coming, I'd go, yeah, well, maybe that is a good idea to pick it up because we're not making any more, but we 100% are making more. It's just this thing, these people are moving as slow as molasses. And I have an order in for a few hundred that I want to have here that I can sell or bring to shows or whatever. And I haven't had books in, I was supposed to get 100 books the first time. They only gave me 50, and I blew through those first 50. Well, I told you I did that show at the brewery. The books all disappeared at the brewery. Put a couple beers in people, they'll buy anything. So all my books disappeared.
Well, we're gonna talk in a later episode about kind of like the price of really rare Goosebumps books, because there are some ludicrous ones, and Art of Goosebumps is one. But kind of staying on topic, I recently found out that your autobiography, It Came from New Jersey, is also considered a rare book, and I'm like, really? That was like. That
one makes sense. So when they did it, they did the autobiography of R.L. Stine. It came from Ohio. I did the cover for that. It was very successful. They said, okay, that works great. And like I said earlier, I was going to schools and doing this program that was, I was doing old slide projector thing, but I, kind of told my life story and did pictures. And we approached the people at Scholastic and said, listen, I'm doing this thing. We could probably turn this into a book as well. And they're going, yeah, but you're your stuff is visual, and you guys know as well as anybody, the paper inside of a original Goosebumps book is the worst quality paper. Paperback page paper is the worst stuff. And as soon as you want to print something on there of color, so we had to cut the number of pages so we could put better paper in the book. So that's why the book is as short as it is, so that we could print good looking images in it. And because I was still just the guy, I'm the illustrator, I'm not R.L. Stine. They said we're doing the minimum run. These probably aren't going to sell, so whatever and I don't know what that number was, but I know that they were doing the minimum run. So, and that was it, and they were never printing them again. So that's why that book is worth more, because there was a limited number right from the start, because they didn't think they would sell that well. It took years before they started to disappear. There was a time where you could go to Amazon and you could buy them for 25 cents, because I used to buy them, because I would go to schools and give them out, and I bought them for 25 cents, and the shipping was more than the book was for a while for a used copy. So, but now, they're gone. But again, this is that rarity scarcity scenario that happens all the time. There was a limited number right from the start. But with these, and I guess that's the case with the rare, you guys would know better than me, a handful of Goosebumps books that people are trying to get to complete their collection. There were less numbers simply printed, correct?
Yep.
I believe so.
Revenge of the Law Gnomes TV book. Like, I would say the two rarest books, like the most expensive books that I have found collecting for 20 years now, is your autobiography would definitely be number one, followed by Revenge of the Law Gnomes TV book, because that was the final TV Presents book that they brought out. And
yet that didn't stop you from getting 4.
So I've been so lucky to find 4 copies. But that's going 20 years of collecting. I have found 4. You know what I mean? Then thinking of Welcome to Dead House, Night of the Living Dummy, I've found hundreds. I mean, I haven't literally bought hundreds of those, but I've got a fair few. But you see those more commonly. But Revenge of the Law Gnomes, I went to a flea market, and there was just this one tub of Goosebump books, and there was just all these commons, and then there was only 2 TV books in the entire box, and it was Return of the Mummy and Revenge of the Law Gnomes just chilling in there. And I'm thinking, are you for real? And I said to the guy, how much are the books? And he goes, 50 cents, but I'll do a deal if you buy the lot. And I'm thinking, what?
Well, we brought this up recently, but another really rare book was one of the later Give Yourself Goosebumps, and I actually found it in a lot for $5, and I had to contain my excitement. I was just like,
yeah. That's the cool part about it when you're doing that, because I'll buy lots of the Goosebumps, a box unknown, just send them to me, because same thing, I'll just sign them and give them out at at an event, and every once in a while you get into the box and you go, well, look at that, there's a good one in there. But most of the times it's all of them that you've seen a million times.
Yeah, the thing is, my main thing is I usually like to go to the secondhand stores, because that's where you can get them for cheap, even if you can, especially if you can find a rare one. The problem is nowadays there's so many thrift stores just don't carry Goosebumps stuff anymore. And again, I think Soda Fan has mentioned this to me, but it seems like a lot, especially in Goodwills, the employees get first dibs on all the stuff that comes in.
Yeah.
Thank God I don't work in a thrift bookstore, because if Goosebumps came in, I'd be like, these are mine now. Thank you.
I'm trying to get a job or volunteer at Goodwill just to try and claim some Goosebumps stuff that comes in.
Oh man.
All right. Well, let's close it out, because I got my 2 questions here. And these are more the curiosity sort of things, and more stuff for you guys to hear. A while ago, when we first talked to him, we talked about your involvement in the Goosebumps movie. Now, we know that you did the vinyl soundtrack, the cover for that, and then as well as the large mural piece with all the characters. And then you also did the very last shot of the movie, which was Jack Black turning, like, the visual of Jack Black turning into a Goosebumps book.
Mhm.
But you actually, if I remember correctly, you told me that you actually didn't know that the end credits were your covers animated. I think
That's
you
correct.
actually
Yeah.
didn't know that until you
Yeah,
saw the
yeah.
movie.
So there was there was a crew that did the movie, then there was a crew that did the closing credits, and that part where Jack Black screams and morphs onto the cover is where the two crews changed over. So my artwork was the beginning was the beginning of the end. So they were trying to produce the artwork on their own. Somebody said, why don't we just call Tim and have him do it? And which was great. So they let me do it. And, I got the art done. And then they kept telling me the whole time was, we have a surprise for you. We have a surprise for you. You're really going to like it. We have a surprise for you. And I'm going, I already don't like this. This isn't. So they brought me and my son out to California for a premiere at this cool small theater. The whole cast was there. The director was there. Got a chance to meet everybody. And, while I was there, I was signing stuff and being part of the program. So they're going, all right, we're going to show the movie now. So me and my son were sitting there and we're watching the movie. And I know that my stuff doesn't happen until the end. So, watch the movie, I'm really enjoying it, all that stuff. And then it gets pretty close to the end. And then somebody comes and grabs me and go, hey, you gotta come out back. We need you to, say hello to this person. And, so I had to go back to work. And so I left. And I didn't get to see my art. I didn't get to see anything that happened. And I get back there, and the guy who was the head of the group was, saw that I was sitting there early on. And then he comes back and he goes, how'd you like it? I go, they pulled me out of the movie. I didn't get a chance to see it. I go, what was it? Just tell me. And he goes, nah, I'm not telling you. He goes, you're going to have to see it yourself. And I was like, ah. So my kid gets out of it. He sees it. He stayed. He didn't have to leave. He watched the movie. And at the time, he's 15 or 16, and he's a ball buster. And so he gets out of there and he's going, oh man, you should have seen it. You should have seen it. I go, yeah, what was it? And he goes, I'm not telling. So I had to come home, fly home, get my girlfriend, go to the movies at midnight and watch the movie again to see the part where I got a chance to finally see what went on. Nobody spilled the beans. Nobody told me. And I had to actually go to the theater to see what actually happened. And it was cool because I was in the theater at midnight. There was, a handful of people there. And, I'm having the time of my life. And, nobody else is, everybody else is there after being at the bar too long. And no, it was a lot of fun. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. Because I never thought, at no point when you're creating art, or at least early on when I was doing the Goosebumps cover, or any cover for that matter, I'm never thinking about this becoming three-dimensional or being in a movie or motion or anything. These are all standalone frozen events. I always think of it as, how do I make the most impactful frozen events? So, I'm never considering what should happen if they do come to life, and to see them actually, see that artwork actually move. It was like, oh yeah, that is how it would work. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So yeah, no, I really appreciated it. And that was cool. That was very cool.
I mean, it's just incredible. Like, going back to like 1992 would probably when you started doing these covers, and then you flash forward like 20 years later, and then your work is in like a big feature film, like in this franchise that's been popular for decades. And it's like, it's incredible, really. It has to be.
And what's even more odd about it is, okay, so right now there's for the past 6 years or so, there's been a real upswing, in Goosebumps nostalgia, exposure of it. People are still very excited about Goosebumps and all stuff, but back when the movie was first coming out, there was a buzz there, but it wasn't the pitch that it was, and nobody, was asking. No one was reaching out to me. Nobody was asking me about what I did in the Goosebumps. Nobody gave a shit about me, about what I did in the past. And so for them to call me out of the blue and go, hey, there's a movie. I go, yeah, I heard there's a movie. And they're like, yeah, you want to come? It's like, wow, I get to go? This is so cool. And so for me, it was something that was firmly in the past, and it was something I was very proud of, but it wasn't something that anybody was talking about. And then all of a sudden, here it was, all back in, it was, what it was really good for was for my kid, because he was too young for when Goosebumps was popular. So by the time he was old enough to read them, he knew what they were and he knew I did them, but they weren't the buzz wasn't there anymore. Plus, everything your old man does, it's not that cool. Even, he's like, yeah, okay, fine, you did that. But when we went out, like, he got the chance to go with me to the premiere and meet people and see, exactly what it was. And yeah, even he walked away going, he goes, oh, I kind of knew this was a big deal, but I didn't realize how cool this really was. So it was way cooler to see it through his eyes when it happened. But now it's more exciting, at least from my point of view now, to be able to go to the comic conventions, meet everybody. Hell, all of us being able to do this on a Zoom call and be able to meet one another. You used to be just, they're just emails with signatures on them, and now I can put faces to all you guys. And that it's still a thing. It still blows my mind that this is still a thing, and it's very exciting that people are still excited. It's super cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's no Goosebumps without you, Tim. Like, I wouldn't have picked up that book.
I will push back on you on that, because there would be something, but I can't. We did catch lightning in a bottle, and I'm very happy that I was the guy who got to slide in there and get his artwork on the cover. But I still think there would be something, and I still think it would be pretty good, even if I wasn't there.
Well, I always considered that you and R.L. Stine were basically like two halves of a whole franchise. Like, there was not to short any of the artists short, because all of them do a great job, but your artwork was not only the original, but it is the one that's plastered on all this apparel and this merchandise now. And I mean, it just as much as R.L. Stine's writing was important, and your artwork was just as important. It's like,
and I think that's part of. I think that's the part that has been so great for me, is I did all this. You guys were all excited about it. You all knew you were excited about it, but I didn't know you guys were excited about it. And it wasn't until all these years later, and you all get to be grown up, and we can all have a conversation where I get to find out now that I was an influence, but at the time, totally was lost on me. It just, I had a good art job. I was having a great time. It was fun. People were nice to me, but I couldn't wrap my head around that, that people know this stuff. I mean, it fits into it. it's on a lot of lists when you start talking about what happened in the 90s culturally.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
My next question, and I'm going to break the rules a little bit because I actually have two more questions. And one of them we're going to kind of end off on. But first of all is, I mean, you always talk about how you had a lot of, when you did an art piece, you had a lot of models. And you had, like, for You Can't Scare Me, I think, wasn't that you that was kind of like modeling
Yeah, I mean,
and then the same thing for Horror Camp Jelly Jam, that was you.
yes.
The Girl Who Cried Monster as well.
Camp Jelly Jam, that's me. What's the one where the teacher's eating the
Mr. Mortman, A Girl Who Cried Monster.
Yeah, the Girl Who Cried Monster, that's me. And at the time, so I'm sure you've seen pictures of me back then. I used to have super long hair, and I remember painting that cover and thinking it was so funny because I was bald. And I was like, look at that. Isn't that funny? I'm bald, and now I'm bald, and I'm going, no, it's not so damn funny anymore. It's more of a reality.
But I wanted to ask, what was probably your favorite instance of that? I know you had a story about the haunted mask specifically.
Yeah, that's my niece Jessie. Those were always the most fun. Actually, there's two paintings where my nieces are in, two different nieces. So yeah, Jessie got to be the girl behind the haunted mask, and she's now she's a doctor. She has 5 kids of her own. So a lot of time has passed, and my other niece, who was in Ghost Camp, where the row of people are walking along, they're all invisible except for the last girl in line, the little blonde girl, and that's my niece, and she's also a head nurse at Sloan Kettering in New York City. She's a big deal, and she's having her second kid. So it's all fun that, they were little and I got a chance to put them in. And but yeah, mostly it's just pieces and parts of people, like, oh, that's my arm in that one. I've done that a million times, where, especially now that we all have cell phones, get your hand out in front of you, take a picture of your hand and go, yeah, that's what I want. And then work from that photograph. So.
Well, it was always funny too, because there was always stuff that you would sneak into covers. Like, I know you in the original Goosebumps covers, you always really had a thing about giving characters Converse shoes.
There you go.
Yeah, like those were funny because it was like those little Easter eggs that you.
Yeah, and I was just doing it for me. Nobody was going, hey, try to come up with something. It's just like, I'm putting my sneakers in it again. Let me put my sneakers in it again.
But it's always funny. It was like funny stuff too. It's not like something where you're like, oh, here we go again. It's like, oh, that's funny. It's
right.
Funny to notice that.
It's because, like, your signature, like, I remember as a kid, like, I would make a game out of looking through my Goosebumps covers and trying to find your signature in each one of them. Like,
I did that too.
Yeah, because I got letters from you guys, and back then, and everything was handwritten. They're like, oh, we like how you hide your name in there, and I'm going, I'm not really hiding my name, but again, we're going back to that 20-inch by 20-inch. I'm signing my name, down there in a 1.5-inch area, which seems fine on a large piece of art. But when you reduce it down, it looks like I'm trying to hide it in there. Then I'm getting notes from you guys saying, oh, that's cool how you hide it. And I go, oh, maybe I'll turn this into a game. And I start hiding it, and to the point where you can't find it anymore. And I'm going, what are you doing? Just people need to know this is you. Just write it in there. Stop fooling around.
They should have done like a Where's Wally book, but for Goosebumps. It's like, where's
Jacobus' signature?
That's great.
And my final question, we do have one more very quick thing after this question. But just in general, what advice do you have to any young artists that want to get into the industry?
The advice. So I used to be able to do, like, if you had asked me this question in the year 2001, I could give you a playbook. I could go, first, what you need to do is you need to get your portfolio like this. You need to reach out to people like this. All that, everything that I did to get my first job as an illustrator no longer applies. Every single thing. You used to carry your art around. You used to go to the publishers. You used to knock on doors. Everything was hands-on and physical and shaking hands and meeting people and making phone calls. And it's not how the world works anymore. My best advice that I can give to anybody, and it's kind of a very general approach, but art has this weird thing about it where people, you hear it all the time. I didn't feel inspired today, so I didn't get, I'm not working. I didn't feel the muse. I need to. You gotta cut that crap out. That's just a phony way of talking yourself out of doing whatever that thing is that you like to do. And from an art aspect, it's nonsense. You just sit down and just do it. And the best time to do your art is when you don't feel like doing it, because you just need to get used to going through the motions when you don't feel like it, because stuff happens while you don't feel like it. That's good. And a lot of times it's not any good, but you're forcing yourself into getting better. It's the push-ups and the sit-ups. You're not going to be able to do more push-ups and sit-ups unless you do them every day and you keep at it. And when you do art on the days that you don't feel like it, the days just after that, when you do feel like it, you're going to feel a little bump, and you're going to notice that you got a little bit better there because you forced yourself through it. So again, my one point is stop looking at art in any creative field as being something that's magical. It's bullshit. It's not magical. It's just like everything else. It's something that needs to be worked at. There's a little magic that does happen in there, but the most of it is just grinding it out and just working through the hard times. It's a numbers game. The more you do, the better you get. I mentioned it at the top of this podcast that I used to sweat out every painting I did. I wasn't sure if I could pull it off. I didn't know if I was good enough to draw whatever they were asking me to do. And that doesn't come into my head anymore. It's like, it'll come. I know it's going to come. I know it's there. So again, just treat it. I'm a glorified plumber. I got really good at twisting the wrench, and I can lay the pipes in there just like anybody else. So it has a lot of trade aspects to it, and you should treat it as such.
Absolutely. Well, before we wrap up today's episode, and Bjorn said this at the beginning, before we started recording, we want to do a little something, and at the count of 3, we want to lift up our favorite book with our favorite cover on it.
Awesome.
All right. So if anyone's ready, we're going to do this on the count of 5. All right. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Awesome. There's some good ones in there.
You Can't Scare Me was the one I wanted to get. This was what made me want to get this book. It was one of the first books I ever got, and it was because of that cover art.
Yeah, I love that cover. It's a little scarier than most.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love it. It's great. And Living Dummy 2, what Bjorn had, and had was Halloween, the Series 2000. That's Halloween.
There's a bunch of the covers in the 2000 series. The 2000 series doesn't get the love that the original 62 do, but there's some pieces in there that I'm super proud of, and I like them. And I think as the years go by, people will venture over there and start to appreciate those.
I love that series so much. I love the cover art for those. They're way more. I mean, it's fitting because I mean they always were like Series 2000 is supposed to be scarier than the others, and even the covers are like way more like.
They took a couple of they took a couple of the bumpers off and said, all right, you can branch out to here and do it. As soon as I got the graveyard ghouls, it's like, can I have his eye popping out? Yeah, you can have his eye popping out.
That one is one of the most epic Goosebumps covers ever. Is Attack of the Graveyard Ghouls.
Return to Ghost Camp was terrifying. The cover,
yeah,
that's a good one.
freaky.
Yeah,
And
the art for that worked out really great. The perspective was nice, and there was a bunch of pieces in there. Again, they're their own separate entity, but fun to do.
Yeah.
well, even brain juice. It's just like a brain like with juice falling on it is like.
Again, there's another one of
wow.
those covers where I'm going, I'm not sure. And then, I've talked about this before, but, after the Goosebumps series stopped and I was venturing on to get more work, here in New Jersey, there's a big contingency of pharmaceutical companies, and there's a lot of pharmaceutical advertising companies. So I would get called from time to time to do, illustrations of, things that happen inside the body. And I'm telling you, there is almost zero distinction between what goes on a horror cover and what goes on in a medical illustration. It's the same tricks. It's like, make it wet, make it gooey, make it dripping, and people are gonna love it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Oh, I love it.
Alrighty,
I love
well,
Just,
that's all.
just one, out of curiosity, have you seen, like, your stuff is all over the place, of course, like your artwork, T-shirts, everything like that. But have you seen that Trick or Treat Studios is actually now making action figures of your art?
No, I didn't see that. Oh, I'll have to look it up.
Oh,
No, I haven't
we'll
seen that.
We'll send you a picture, but
right.
we talked about this in the last episode, but
Are they
Trick or
just
Treat
in the
Studios.
early stages? They're in just mock-ups,
Well,
or they
they're-
actually out?
Pending licensor approval right now is what they're telling me.
Okay.
But they do, like, they put it out at Toy Fair recently, like actual, like, I saw them before that, but like they have them out as Haunted Mask, Slappy, the Mud Monster. Which one was the other? Oh,
Mummy.
Mummy.
The Scarecrow.
And Curly, they're bringing Curly
Then they
back.
have a Build-A-Figure of Curly.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice.
It's like
they're planning
Well, it's
a
funny
second
because
wave yet,
people have
too.
been, even, to me over the years, everybody's been going, oh, you know what you should have, And it's like, yeah, well, somebody else has got to do it. I did my part.
yeah.
But that's so cool that they're doing it. I hope they have a lot of success.
Yeah, well,
They've
Trick
already
or Treat
got a good
Studios
buzz
is,
on it. They've already said that they're doing another wave. So
Yeah.
All right, cool.
we were talking in the last episode what ones we want to see, and we're really excited. I mean, it's incredible, like what some smaller companies are able to do, and like how they're able to create things that are so like similar to whether it's the book covers of the TV series. Like it's just incredible. So, but yeah, we'll send you a picture because
Yeah,
they look
love to
really
see it.
cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
But for our time right now, it is the end of our episode for today. Tim, thank you so incredibly much for joining us today and just having this little chat.
It's been fun.
Yeah,
any-
absolutely.
Anytime, guys, we could do it again.
Absolutely. And is there any place that our audience can find you?
Just Tim Jacobus on Instagram and jacobusstudios.com for prints. And we didn't mention it today, but it's kind of well known. Buy a print, $10 from every sale of every print goes to buying food to support the local food bank. And there's no middlemen. We take $10 and me and my kid buy the food and we load it in the truck and take it down the street. So we're able to fill up my pickup truck every month for quite a long time now. And, I thank all you guys for the support you give to that. And the people down the street are unbelievably thrilled that we keep showing up every month, because there's plenty of times where we go there and they're like, oh my God, we're so glad you came. There's no food here. We ran out. So, we're bringing in a ton of food. So thanks to all you guys for all your support.
And the Goosebumps prints are amazing. Christmas gifts. Christmas is coming up. If you got a Goosebumps fan who really could use a nice Goosebumps print, go to jacobusstudios.com. There is a whole bunch of them there. And like Tim said,
we're up to 20 and we'll be getting a couple more soon. As soon as I can afford to get a couple more in there. It's an expensive endeavor to introduce a new print, but we're going to keep, you guys keep buying them. It's a pyramid scheme. As long as you keep buying them, I'll keep spending the money and getting more. And at some point it'll crash and burn, but not yet.
I keep buying it, so
yeah,
clearly.
absolutely.
There's even ones you don't see here,
And the
but
Ghost Camp
still waiting
one.
on the Haunted Mask too.
Awesome. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
on the list. We'll get there. We'll eventually get them all.
Well, yeah, and definitely go check out jacobusstudios.com if you guys want to check that out. Otherwise, you can go follow Tim Jacobus on Instagram, and of course, follow all these other wonderful people, all my Goosebumps cohorts, Goosebumps Saucy Fan, Shawin, Minnesota Goosebumps Fan, and the Ultimate Goosebumps Man on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, wherever you can find them. They really deserve the support. And, of course, give us a sub over here at the Goosebumps channel if you guys want to keep up on future videos and future episodes of the Goosebumps Crew Podcast. Pretty soon, we will be available on Spotify and other platforming mediums. So go ahead and give us a sub so you can keep up with updates. But for the time being, for all of us here at the Goosebumps Crew Podcast, thank you all for joining us. And this is the Goosebumps channel signing out for the night. And y'all have a scary day.